Hey film buffs, welcome back to Film Feature 43. Today is everyone's favorite holiday, the one that we look forward to all year. It's the day that we get our weather advice from a large rodent in Pennsylvania. That's right, it's Groundhog Day. And what better way to celebrate this monumentous holiday than to watch the movie Groundhog Day and kind of figure out how many days Phil was in Punxsutawney for in this time loop. I've seen some interviews with Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis from the last 30 years, and they give kind of vague answers that he was in the time loop for a couple years, but they never really nailed down what they believe is an exact time frame of how long he was in the time loop. I think maybe they think that kind of takes away from the film a little bit if you give an exact number of days, but I was curious, so I decided to watch the movie a couple times, take down notes, and figure out for myself my estimates on how many days Phil was in his own personal hell of embitterment. Like I said, these are my estimates, so if you think I over-exaggerated some or under-exaggerated some, you're probably right. These were things that I did to make it make sense to me. So if you think I'm wrong, let me know down below. If you think it's more days, less days, let me know. And without further ado, let's get into counting. So for starters, I'm not going to count the first day that Phil arrives in Punxsutawney. I don't think he's made contact with the devil or set off the sissy machine or whatever enters him into this time loop to begin with. So I'm not going to start counting until we first hear the song. The first set of days that I'm going to add to the count are pretty much the easiest ones. They're the 39 days that we see throughout the film explicitly take place, where we can tell, yes, this is a morning, yes, this is an evening of the same day, and kind of lump them together. I counted 39 of these days, and that includes several suicide attempts and 8 different slaps.
Stop it!
That we see Rita inflict on Phil. These days also include the days where he kidnapped Punxsutawney Phil and was a general jerk to people and ultimately becomes a better person in the end. And those are the basis 39 days that we specifically see. And during these days, he tries to manipulate 2 different women. And while doing that, he mentions that he saw this movie 100 times. In that, I'm going to take him literally, and this is kind of the first gleaning that we get that it's been more than a couple days. So I'm going to add 100 days to our count. The next thing that we see Phil do is rob an armored truck, which he memorizes 12 different steps for. So in my thinking, I think that would take him 10 different days to get those steps down perfect to be able to steal the money from the armored truck without any hitch. We also see Phil talk to Rita about her career and say that she likes Rocky Road ice cream. So I think that those both take place in the same day where he was getting to know her. So I'll add another day to the count. So some of you doubters out there might be saying that he learned these things about Rita throughout these other days that we see. And you could be right, but I think that especially since she's the one he's trying to swoon, that he would take specific time for her to learn these different facts in at least a day's time like he did with most of the other townspeople, so that's why I'm adding a day here. Phil also learns French to try to impress Rita.
La fille qui j'aimerai sera comme bon vin, que c'est bon fuira un peu chaque matin.
And according to Google, that can take 24 weeks, so I will add 168 days to our count. He also learned 2 French poems, which I think would take about a week apiece, so I'll add 14 days. We know that he learns every answer to Jeopardy, but to me, I think he could do those on the days where he was rejected by Rita and just went home back to his room, so I'm not going to add any days for the Jeopardy, but he does mention 7 separate suicide attempts, and one of them being electrocution, which we already counted before, so I'm going to add 6 more days to our day in Punxsutawney count. I looked up how long it would take to learn how to become a professional ice sculptor, and the almighty Google told me 2 years. I thought it would take a little bit longer than that, but Google is never wrong, so we'll add 730 days. While he's trying to prove that he's a god to Rita, we find out that he knows all about Doris, and Fred and his gal, and Tom and Bill and Silas, and Little Mo with the gimpy leg, all these people in the diner. So we'll add a year about, because I'm not sure how many people are actually in the diner. I think that's a good cushion for him to be able to learn the facts about the people who frequent the diner. He rattles off 12 more fun facts about Rita, which I'll add another 12 days to our count. For those of you who are keeping up at home, that's one fun fact per day, because I feel like it's trial and error. He's learning something each day. He's spending time with Rita. He could have learned all 12 of these in one day, but I think he's trying to spend as much time as he can with her. And he says himself it took him
6 months, 4 to 5 hours a day.
to learn how to throw a playing card into the hat, so we'll add another 6 months. He learned Larry's coffee order and read 5,000 or so page books, so I say 2 days per book if he's reading them fairly quickly. I mean, Phil seems like a pretty smart guy. He's gotten this far in life just skating by, so if he really put his mind to it, I think he'd be able to read those books in 2 days. We'll say 11 days total for the coffee order and the 5 books. I actually think he became a professional piano player while trying to impress Rita, and I looked it up, and pianoground.com says that it takes 15 to 20 years to become a professional piano player, so I took the lower end of that and added 15 years to our count. Because he learned 2 different genres, I added another 5 years onto that for him to kind of learn that different style. I've never played piano before. I don't know how difficult it is, but to me it looks extremely difficult. I've known people that have been playing for years, and it just looks difficult to me. So I added another 5 years for him to learn that other genre. You might be saying he just learned 2 different songs, he didn't become a professional, but I don't think that's true. I think he would look pretty stupid if Rita said, "Hey, can you play Great Balls of Fire?" And he's like,
"Oh, I don't know how to play that."
He became professional in his piano playing, so he could play whatever song Rita wants him to play. So that's why I added so much time for the piano playing scene. 2 more years to learn Italian, and I'd say probably at least 3 days to learn his big "I'm a better man" speech that he gives in front of the whole town.
But standing here among the people of Punxsutawney and basking in the warmth of their hearths and hearts, I couldn't imagine a better fate than a long and lustrous winter.
And 1 day per each altruistic scene that we see him partake in. So that's the kid falling out of the tree, and helping the old people with the tire, and saving his brother mayor, and lighting the cigarette, and helping the old person with back pain. I think each of these, especially to learn the timing of these, was at least 1 day all separately, so he could learn each of these events in different times and be able to time them out specifically. I'm going to add 8 weeks for him to perfect his ice sculpting. I know I added 2 years before on him learning how to ice sculpt, but I think knowing what he wanted and trying to get that perfect took him an additional 8 weeks, specifically focusing on the thing that he wanted to sculpt. The last thing I want to add to this count is Phil really seems to become friends with half of the population of Punxsutawney. So what I wanted to do was take half the population in 1993 and add 1 day per resident. The population in 1993 was 7,000, so I took 3,500 and added it to our final count, because I think he would spend 1 day with each of these residents, getting to know them at least 1 day. I mean, you don't really know anybody in a day's time, but if he's really focused on that person for 1 day, he would be able to do it. It would just take a lot of focus to remember everyone's name and everyone's detail. So that's another reason why I did half the population instead of the whole thing. So that brings our grand total to 13,288 days, or 36 years and 148 days. So after I got my number, I went and looked at different theories online, and they varied anywhere from 10 years to 50 years. So I'm right in between the two pretty much. So I think I did at least a halfway decent job. If time moves the same in Loopland as it does in the real world, Phil would still be in Punxsutawney today. He'll be there until June 21st, 2030. Phil still has 7 years a better part of a decade to spend in his timey-wimey prison, at least according to my calculations. So what do you guys think? Let me know down below if you think I really over-exaggerated or I hit it right on the head, or under-exaggerated and you think he's going to be in there for 50 years. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.